Good news, everyone! Today we got a fun brew day here on Brew and Wrench, and I welcome you all to come and join me for some shenanigans and a couple of beers in the brewery. All right, we need to get started here. We got to talk about what we're doing today. Well, I guess I need to clear some space here. Get that out of the way. All right. Okay, so we got a Wort transformation challenge here. So the rules: you must use the Wort in your finished beer. Beer must be finished by October meeting for judging. Wort stats: 89% pale malt, 4% caramel 120, 4% chocolate malt, 3% roasted barley, and 1045 SG with 5.3 IBU and 22 SRM. Well, a little bit of background about this recipe here. So I recently joined a club in town, the Green Bay Brewers Guild, and like my first club brew meeting, we had a Wort transformation challenge. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in on that. Yes, please. So a little bit more about this recipe. So the club president came up with this recipe, and he specifically planned on getting a 1046 original gravity with it, and boom, 1045. Now that's what I call dialing in a system. So props to him on that. My first club brew that I got to go to was a Wort transformation challenge, which they brewed the Wort at that club brew, which was really cool. They did it on like a 1 BBL system, totally fancy. Sorry I didn't get any footage, but we will get some in the future, trust me. So reviewing the recipe here. So this is my Wort challenge beer. We're going to be doing a 90-minute boil. I'm expecting to get about 4 gallons after the boil. The pre-boil is about 6 gallons. Post-boil, that's just some calculation the site put in there. Pre-boil, 1046, though it's really like 1045. It's not 100% accurate. I've just tried to get close to what we have to work with here. Efficiency 70%. That doesn't really matter here. So anyway, I'm shooting for about 1073 with a final gravity of 1016. Now, if that all works out, I'll have an ABV of 7.5% with IBU of 23ish, though I hope it comes in a little bit lower, and an SRM of 30.15, which makes for a really nice dark brown beer. So the amounts here really don't matter that much. I just kind of threw some things on there to get close to whatever the grain bill was on the little piece of paper here, and then I added the brown sugar to it. So after that, I figured in the hops. Now the hops I picked, I did crystal hops for 60 minutes. Because I'm looking for it. Well, one, it's what I have available to me right at this moment, and it's a nice spicy hop, which would be a good base to start with. And then I added half an ounce of nugget and half an ounce of Fuggles. Well, it's not really that. What it is I've got a jar of 1 ounce of nugget and 1 ounce of Fuggles that are mixed together because I messed up something somewhere, and I just saved them and picked something else at the time. So they are now known as Nugfug hops. So I've got my Nugfug hops here. So I'm taking half of my Nugfugs. So that's just a rough estimate. I don't really know what the AA is going to be. I don't know how it's going to impact the bitterness of it, but there it is. We're using a half ounce nugget, a half ounce Fuggles. Mash doesn't matter. My other ingredients, I'm adding just a little bit of Irish moss to help with the break, with the hot and cold break. And then I'm adding just a little bit of yeast nutrient to it to help get that fermentation going good and healthy. And then after the primary ferment is done, I'm going to be doing, it says here half a gallon of cold brewed chai tea. I'm going to do it to taste, but I'm going to give you a little bit of information about why I chose to go with the cold brew. Now I'm adding half a gallon of cold brewed chai tea to taste. Now, I'm going to go into detail on the reason why I did that. Now, I did a little experiment where I did a little bit of hot brewed chai tea and I did some cold brewed chai tea. I did a simple hot brewed chai tea thing. I made it like I would make a normal cup of tea. You know, heat it up to boiling, steep it for however long, and that's what we have. And then I also took 1 liter of cold filtered water, and I added it to a jar, and then I took about 6 heaping teaspoons of masala chai loose leaf tea, put them in the tea bag, and tied it up and put it in a jar with a liter of water and stuck it in the fridge. At about a half hour, it started to take on some nice aromatic qualities. You didn't really taste any bitterness or any of the other things that you would taste from hot brewed tea. It was just clean, spicy, fresh, wonderful aroma. And that's pretty much all that it was. Now, when I did the hot brewed chai tea, that had a lot of tanniny bitterness, which tannins are for wine. Tannins are what make wine yummy. Well, some wine's yummy. But tannins kind of are not good for beer. Tannins make beer just taste bad in general. Also, you have to consider the taste of hops mixing with the tannins, and that's just not good. So, while hot masala chai tea is delicious, it's not what I want in my beer. So I've opted to go with a cold brewed chai tea for the aromatic qualities that it has. And then I'm going to make a half gallon of it up. I might use the whole half gallon. I might not use the whole half gallon. We'll go into it a little bit more later. But it's just something that I'm going to have to feel out because I've never done it before. Okay, moving on to the yeast. I've opted to go with the Fermentis Safe Ale US04 yeast. It's a pretty basic dried yeast. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's reliable, it ferments nice and quick, and it makes good beer. I've used it before in ciders and other less dry types of beers, more when you're after more body and sweetness. So that's what I'm going for this one. I'm going for a ferment temp of about 69 degrees because I want to get at least a little bit of esters out of that yeast. I don't need much, just a little bit to add a touch to it. Okay, we're down in the brewery now, and just gonna go in a little more detail about the hops and other things that I'm using in this recipe. So we've got 1 ounce of crystal hops. Now, I mentioned before that I don't really know what the AA of these hops are, so I'm just estimating it at 4.3. It's just the default amount that Brewer's Friend populated for me. So anyway, that's going in for 60 minutes, and I mentioned before that I'm using the Nugfug hops. So it pretty much did. If everything was perfect, I'd have half ounce of each of those. This just kind of shows that I'm adding them both together at 5 minutes left in the boil, and the AA amounts I've got on there are just also default amounts because I don't really know what the AA of those were either. Moving on down for fining, I'm using just about a teaspoon of Irish moss at 10 minutes. I'm adding just a touch of yeast nutrient at also 10 minutes. I know I could probably add it a little bit later, but it's just a teeny bit to make up for the sugar that's in there. Plus, it's nice to use a little bit of yeast nutrient because it always just adds, it kicks your fermentation off just a lot better, and it's just more reliable in general. And then after the primary, I'm going to be doing, well, it is after the primary, but before I bottle it or keg it, I haven't decided if I'm going to bottle or keg yet, but I'm using cold brewed chai tea. So moving on to the boil schedule. The way I like to write my boil schedules up is I add a little block in my recipe notes, and I like to write the step out and then a T and a number after the step, which basically means I set
I do the step, and then I set a timer, and then whatever number is how many minutes that I set it for. So when I finish that, after the timer goes off, after I've set it for that, that means just move on to the next step, set the timer again, rinse, repeat, whatever, however you want to explain it. But anyway, so boil and break, add caramelized sugar, and set a timer for 30 minutes. After that's done, add 1 ounce of crystal hops, set a timer for 45 minutes. After that's done, add the wort chiller, yeast nutrient, Irish moss, set a timer for 10 minutes. Once that's done, add the nugfugs and set the timer for 5 minutes, and then we flame out. After that, it's just cool it down to the 70 degrees and pitch the yeast. Simple as that. Right. Famous last words. Now I like to get everything as set up as I can before I actually do a whole lot when I'm brewing. Because then I don't have to think about it later. Because, well, you never know how much beer you're going to have on a brew day. So when you have things set up, it makes things a lot easier no matter what happens. So I've got my airlock is in here. I got my hoses for the wort chiller in here. And I'm just going to cover this up and give it a quick shake. And that should sanitize all of my stuff for when I'm ready to transfer the wort in there after the boil and the wort is cool. Now, one of the lessons that I've learned a long time ago in brewing beer is that you always have a bucket with some mop water ready, just in case you get a boil over or a spill or anything crazy like that. I've learned that the one time that you don't have a mop bucket at the go is the one time that you get a really nasty boil over, and that's never fun to clean up. So one must always be prepared for boilovers and messes in the brewery. You know, like I said before, while this trick sometimes works, you turn your back for 2 seconds, and come on now, and your timer goes off when you're in another room. Because, well, folks, that's just how home brewing works. Freaking little mess I gotta clean up. Well, to say the least, we're at boil. Alright, we are at a nice boil here, and that means it's time to add the caramelized sugars. Ooh. So, get a nice color, everything's incorporated, and in it goes. You don't need to make woo sounds, goofball.
Well, I mean, why not?
Because you're ridiculous.
I'm a little drunk.
Oh, you haven't even been brewing! Okay.
I made a stupid drink.
Gotta make sure we get every last bit of that good caramelized sugar. Okay. So, as the Better Three Quarters had mentioned earlier that she was drunk off of like one drink, she was doing a little science experiment today, coming up with a unique drink for a little group she's in. And if you're anywhere from around the Wisconsin, like Bay Area, you know what lake water and bay water looks like. Just to say the least, you just know what it looks like. So we attempted to make a drink called lake water. Now, it doesn't quite have the rust tint to it, but it nonetheless looks like lake water. It's got a lot of whiskey in it and some apple pucker. So she's a bit of a lightweight, so I guess I'm not surprised. Oh, at least it tastes better than lake water. I had failed to record it, which is unfortunate, but what I was trying to say is, like, for the second time today, I have stepped away from my brewery for just, like, a minute or two, and of course my timer's going off. I come back, and I come to find my timer's been going off for 8 minutes, and I didn't even realize it. Well, geez. I guess I just need to turn my stereo up a little louder so I can actually hear the damn thing when I'm somewhere else. Jeez. Oh, by the way, those were the crystal hops. Time to set the new timer. We are well underway in our boil. We've got, I don't know, 20 minutes left or something until the next step. Nice rolling boil. Smells great. Got our hops. Everything is going smoothly with the exception of me forgetting my timers. A quarter of brewing beer sitting around waiting for things to happen, and another quarter of it is cleaning. So since I'm sitting around waiting for things to happen, I figured it'd be a good time to clean some bottles I had laying around. Yeah, see, work smarter not harder, folks. I normally need 2 hands to do this, but I'm just going to show you. Oh. That's how you clean a bottle, folks. A quarter of beer brewing is, well, one of it is cleaning, the other is waiting for things to happen. Well, another quarter of it is waiting for things to carbonate. That's another one. And then the last quarter of brewing is planning. Plan your stuff. Make sure you have everything you need when you need it, which more often than not doesn't happen, but you know what I mean. So we've just finished our long 45-minute stretch of waiting for things to happen, and now it is time to add the yeast nutrient and Irish malts. So we're going to do that. In it goes. So now we set the timer for 10 minutes and we wait for things to happen some more. Like I said, you know, I might be off on my proportions there. Maybe it's not evenly divided by quarters. I'm sure there's some other amounts in there, but I will get that to you on a later date. We are on the last step here. We need to add the nugfugs. Alright, time to note the time. 5 and P. Alright, so we've got that. Make sure we click save. Nugfugs! Alright. Now to go get the nugfugs and add them to the beer. Make sure you get a good whiff of them before you put them in. Oh, that's spicy earthy. And it goes. Smells like a good beer making. That's that. The last step. Now we set the timer for 5 more minutes and we flame out. So I've forgotten one step here. One thing that I have been meaning to do and I forgot to do it because, well, I'm a forgetful person. I'd forget my freaking head if it wasn't stuck on me. But anyway, need to rehydrate the yeast. So that means I have to rinse some stuff off here. So what I've done is I've taken just a container that I've had here that I had some hops in. I've rinsed it out thoroughly and I need to sanitize it. So I'm going to do that. Just use some Star Sand. Spray it down good. Spray the lid. Parts of it. Spray the outside rim. Whole back. Let it sit for your contact time of 1 minute. Contact time is very important. I need to go shut this noisy thing off here. Good ventilation is key when brewing indoors. Trust me on that one. Though I generally recommend brewing outdoors, unless you got special setup. But now that we don't have to hear the obnoxious in the background, I'd probably say we're pretty close to our contact time now. So make sure I get some water coming out of here. Now when you rehydrate dried yeast, you want to use some water between 75 and 100 degrees. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just fresh, clean water. I know I have city water here and there's chlorine in it, but it's such a small amount that I've done this a gazillion times before and I've never had any issues with rehydrating it. So, some sanitizer out. Fill it about, I don't know, a third to half of the way full of water. We want to make sure we sanitize everything. So, sanitizing the scissors, the yeast packet, the surface that I'm opening it on, waiting my contact time, though it does, as long as surfaces that aren't in direct contact with the yeast, I don't worry about it after about 30 seconds or so. So we got this. I've shook the sanitizer off. I need to cut it open. Cut open my yeast packet. Now I'm going to add the yeast carefully to the surface of the water. Make sure you get it all out of there because every yeast counts. And then I cap it up loosely. And that's how it's going to sit for, I don't know, until I get the wort cooled down to 70 degrees so I can pitch. It'll take about 20 minutes or so to get it that cool, so that's plenty of time to rehydrate the yeast. I'll see you then. I took my kettle off of the burner and set it on the floor to drag it over here, and well, I got a big old poop stain on the floor that I'm gonna have to mop up later when I'm done. Hey, it just goes to show that what I was saying before about having that mop and bucket handy ain't no joke, man. All right, and now we are cooling the wort. I've connected up the wort chiller to the cold water faucet. I got my temperature thermometer thing set up right here. We're at 192 right now, and we're going to cool it down to about 70 degrees. Now, it's going to take a while to do this, but it is what it is. It just takes time. So we're going to cool this. We're going to stir it. We're going to work around that chiller to aerate, but I'm going to wait a little bit before I start handling the chiller because it's extremely hot right now. At our temp now, it's time to grab a gravity reading. So, I'm going to use my refractometer here, and I'm just going to grab a few drops of the wort, and then we'll see what we get. So it looks like I'm seeing about 19 to 19 point, maybe 0.1, but probably 19. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this so well, but I'm going to try anyway.
It's kind of hard to see through the recording here, but trust me, it's 19.
Now, since I have not memorized converting from bricks to SG, I'm going to go use a calculator. Yes, I could get a refractometer that's in SG, but the one I got was an Amazon special, and well, it gets the job done. 1.078.5. So I'm going to round it up because I believe in the rules of rounding. Anything 5 or above is round up. Anything 4 or below is round down. So I'm going to say it's 1079. Well, would you believe? That's, well, not a would you believe moment, but that's a bit of an overshoot from what we've got here. So what I might do is I might dilute it down a bit. I did have a little bit of extra boil time in there, here and there, from my fumbling with camera time. But you know, can't have progress without some troubles here and there. So I'm gonna run that through. So we got about, I'm gonna say we got about 4-ish gallons of wort here. I'm gonna go and calculator this. We have about 4 gallons. So the current gravity is 1079. Now I want to get to 1070, probably 1075. It's a bit high, but I'll have to add too much to get it there. So if I add 0.21 of a gallon, which is pretty close to 0.25, so I'd probably round up a bit. It's pretty safe to say that I can add about 1/4 of a gallon of water to this and get a little bit more wort for my volume and still end up within the recipe estimates. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 0.25 of a gallon to this, and I'm going to make sure that I note it. And then we'll go from there. I've added my calculations into the notes. Always take good notes, people. You never know when you might brew an award-winning recipe. Trust me, you'll want those good notes if you do end up brewing an award winner. It's pretty cool. So I've wrote all that down. I got the wort cooled down to 70 degrees. The gravity is at 1079. I'm adding about 1/4 of a gallon of water to the wort to get it closer to the original estimate. Now, I don't know yet, but I will be changing that number when I have the final measurement. So I'm going to take it one more time after I transfer the wort to the fermenter and add the water to it. I'm sure people are going to see me in my sandals and be like, it's dangerous to do that in sandals.
Well, who cares? Big deal. Okay, go for it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the wort cooled. I've taken my initial gravity measurement, and now I'm going to need to put it into the fermenter. So it's a bit wet down here, and you'll remember what I said about having a mop bucket at the ready, but we'll fix that later. So we got to get the sanitizer out of here. Grab the airlock. Hopefully we got enough sanitizer in there. We're going to get some more. Put that there for now. Set that somewhere where it's not going to get dirty. Alright, so I may have alluded to something about aerating a different way earlier. Well, this is how we do it. Make a big arc, splash a lot. Yeah, that's how you aerate wort, the easy way. I guess my guess was off a bit. I guess we're a little closer to 4.5. I'm still going to add 1/4 of a gallon to it, and we're going to see what we get. 1 quart. If you've gone to school, you probably know that a quart is 1/4 of a gallon. 4 quarts in a gallon, you know. So I'm going to add 1/4.
Holy crap, is that why they call it a quart? Because it's a quarter?
That's interesting thought. Maybe.
It's a
So I
quarter?
suspect they might have just called it a quart because it was a cool word. They put my quarter in the sink when they never should have done that. Now we gotta sanitize. and await the contact time. So while I'm sitting and waiting a minute here, I'm gonna have some beer.
Is that my kitchen spatula?
It is your kitchen spatula, and it will be going upstairs in a bit.
In my stainless steel pot?
Well, that's what you gave me the caramelized sugar in, and I didn't bring it upstairs yet. What do you want from me, woman? Jeez Louise, I can't do anything around here.
Stop stealing my kitchen stuff.
Remember I said a quarter, but I'm starting to think that it's more than that of brewing, is waiting for things to happen, and that's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Contact time is important because it would be a shame if that work we just spent all those resources heating and boiling for 90 minutes.
Watch it work.
It would be a real shame if we just didn't sanitize our stuff and it just ruined the whole batch. So now that I think we're appropriately sanitized, I'm going to give this a real good stir. I'm going to check the gravity one more time. Excuse me. And it looks like we've dropped down to 18.4. So we're gonna calculate that out. Here, you can work on that. It's
Let me
not
see.
fun to get it, trust me.
Okay, well. Oh, I'm stuck to the floor.
I told you it was wet. I told you to wear sandals.
I did wear
and you listened,
sandals.
so that's good. Well, that brings us to 1076, which isn't bad.
Where's the eyeball?
I think I'm going to add another quarter of a gallon to it, just to see.
Oh, can you focus for me? Touch the screen.
Wow.
Touch the screen.
Oh.
There. Look at that.
Well, it's hard to see in there, but it's 18.4. So I didn't calculate the second addition to it, but we're going to add another quart.
Ooh, another quart. Quarter.
That's not a quart. Close enough.
Woo. Here's the thing.
Gotta clean my thing off. That's what somebody said. I don't know who, but somebody said I gotta clean my thing off.
Okay.
Come on, that was a funny joke.
I don't get it.
I gotta clean my thing off. That's what he said. There, is that better? That's better. $17.5. I think that might be the ticket. You want to look again? Or
No,
are you
I
gonna
think
trust
we
me
got
this
it.
time?
We got it. Take notes.
1072, and if you recall, our original estimate was 1073. So I'm going to say that it's time to pitch the yeast.
Pitching.
So that yeast we had, that we rehydrated, has woke up, to say the least. Nice and foamy. That yeast is rearing to go, ready to make some beer. So we're going to tighten that cap, give it a good shake. Get the spoon out of the beer. Take note of what we have. So we've got, well, I guess I must have had a lot of foam before because it settled down and we're still at about 4.5 gallons. So I must have had 4 before, but that's better than I was planning on getting. So that's good to me. So in goes the yeast. Smells like yeast. Alright, now we got our lid. It fell in the sink, so I don't 100% trust it, so I'm just going to give it one quick dusting. My airlock is missing. Once again, we are waiting for things to happen while our contact time does its contact time thing. Have another drink. Did you know Pabst makes a higher ABV type beer? It's called Pabst Blue Ribbon Extra. It's good stuff.
Whoa.
I recommend you get it if you can find it. It tastes like Pabst except with a little bit more kick, which is always welcome in my opinion. Alright, I think we've waited long enough. Cover this up, put our airlock in. Okay, now that we've got the yeast pitched, we got the lid on tight, there's sanitizer in the airlock, we need to get it in the fermentation chamber. So I've got the fermentation chamber set at 69 degrees. I want to ferment this one a little bit higher because I want to see if I can get an ester or two out of the yeast. So without further ado, we're going to put this in here. Put it like so. Seal it up. Don't seal it 100%. You want to leave it open a little bit, otherwise seals on refrigerators are better than you think. Because if you don't have anywhere for anything to escape, the CO2 gas doesn't get out of the chamber and it ends up back in your beer, which, trust me on this one, it will stop your fermentation dead in its tracks, and that's not a good thing. So somewhere I got lost in that mess of a proportion of time spent doing whatever while you're brewing. Well, now we're on to cleaning. So now I gotta probably spend a half hour to clean up all this stuff. Fortunately, since I was cleaning my bottles before, I've got some leftover PBW solution there, which will make cleanup pretty easy.